Okay, we left off page Yud Aleph, page 11. Okay, the Ramchal in the Sisram says on page Yud Aleph, he says, no one who has any semblance of intelligence could think for a moment that the value of life is this existence. He says, most people, if you look at your lives in terms of your experiences, the disappointments, the suffering, the pain, the aggravation, that the world should have its value unto itself, and the illness. So I said, what he's saying here is definitely true up to a certain point in history. In terms of wars and death and starvation and disease, and when you lived under the dominion of a monarchy, your life, every moment, there was a question whether, you exist or you don't exist. So what's the value? Could you say the value is the present? Evidently, it must be, despite everything, there's a higher value. So he says, anybody who has any degree of intelligence cannot be convinced that this is what it's about. He says, in addition, if the ultimate objective of man was for this world, for the physical existence, what did God have to? When he created man, he infused him with a neshama, with a soul. The soul in its dimension, especially a Jewish soul, an angel cannot fathom the makeup of a Jewish soul. Let a human being an intellectual animal. He should be endowed with intellect to be able to be effective and productive and creative without the neshama. What do you need the neshama for? In addition, what benefit if the essence of the person is the soul? What does the soul have? What relevance does it have to physical existence? What pleasure could it have? Whatever physical accomplishments, regardless how great they are, it has no relevance to the neshama. Sometimes there's an expression, you don't hear it. It doesn't speak to me. They used to use that expression. No. That's the more advanced, that's an update. It doesn't resonate. But it doesn't speak to me. Okay? The old-time, businessman that built the business over the years, phenomenal, successful business. His son all of a sudden becomes the connoisseur in clothing and food and everything else. And the father's still eating his herring and black bread and oil and his cup of tea for breakfast every day, right? And the son goes and buys something, cost a fortune, and he says to his father, "Pa, what do you think?" Doesn't speak to me. You understand? You're getting carried away here. You're off track. So what do you need in Shama if the value of existence is purely to advance physicality and the end result is purely physicality? What do you need such an exalted soul? Endow the human being with an intellect to be able to be effective and productive and accomplished in that area. See, but it's interesting. That's only if you believe you have a soul, right? It's predicated. If you believe you have a soul, meaning you take the Torah for face value, whatever it says there, that's fact. Man was endowed with a neshama. So that itself immediately gives us an understanding that what is the direction of the human being. Do you go in the physical direction, or the physical is purely to facilitate the spiritual? Right? That's clear. That's what he's saying. Koheles says the soul will not be sated, will not be filled. Lironi shenosa basmelech. A commoner marries a princess. Im yovi lo kol masha ba'olam. So bring him what he considered his delicacies and what he considers special and quality. You bring it to the princess. She says, something? I don't even know what this is. This is the stuff we feed to our cats and dogs. And this is what you bring to your wife. She's a princess. It has no value whatsoever. She basmelech. She's a princess. You bring all. It's like a person says, Rabbi, what what kind of portfolio of real estate I have? You can't even write a check for 5 cents. What kind of check I could write? So I said, a person comes after 120 years to Mabo, he tells Hashem, what have you accomplished? Nobody's accumulated as much manure as I have. I could fertilize, how many fields? The whole world I could fertilize with the manure. You know something? You're going to be buried in that manure. So what's your accomplishment? You understand? It has no value whatsoever. So you have that accomplishment. No, the library is called after you, and this is after you. Therefore, what's its value? Fifth Avenue, now it carries my name. Therefore what? Do you know what I paid for it? Many years ago, there was a woman, still comes to a class of mine. She's learned since then. And there's a certain person who's Jew, he's married to a trophy wife, Shiksa. And she built in the Bronx Zoo a gorilla pavilion. Alan knows about this a little bit. A gorilla pavilion, yeah? That was her project. And the husband's very proud of her, this Jewish guy. A gorilla pavilion, that it's the habitat exactly as they are in the jungle. She invited many women to come, but to be able to be qualified to come, you had to give $10,000 to the gorilla pavilion. Otherwise, and when you would leave, they'd give you a small Burberry bag, like a shopping bag. So this woman comes back and that day was the class. She brings in a Burberry. She says, "You know what this is?" I went. I was invited. I was one of the select people invited that. And she says, I said, "What did it cost you?" $10,000. I said, "Are you out of your mind? You're priding yourself in the bag that cost maybe $50, $80. You gave $10,000 for a gorilla pavilion. I mean, aren't you ashamed of yourself? If you think about it just for a moment, you waste. It's a waste of money. You couldn't give that money to something of a greater cause." She was ashamed. She was embarrassed. You get carried away. The select food, being invited, and who the husband, and who this and that. Well, where are you going with all this? What's its value? It has no value. And people get carried away with this. Do you realize where I'm invited, on that boat, this and that, the yacht, and there, and where, and what? Until it's hit with a wave that takes the boat that takes it down. That's the end of the story. To be continued. What? Everything is irrelevant.
That's what it is. If you invest your balance, you can't understand or explain a lot of things. But many kids must have done stuff.
Do you know why?
Because when the young they're taught to be intellectual and questioning, instead of just accepting it, so this is the way it is.
When my kids were 5 years old, you would ask them, "Is the Torah truth? Is the Word of God?" I said, "How do you know?" Because my father told me. And that's where it began, that's where it ended. Today, the teachers, the parents, they don't communicate that message to the children. You have to have that foundation. As you mature, as you develop intellectually, then you begin understanding. But if you don't start with it, I'm supposed to find it on my own, where the whole world even questions that reality. So, total confusion.
Very fundamental.
Sure, any values, morals, ethics, behavior. Where does it start? It starts in the home. With the parents, or as in the.
Intelligent, real smart people, religious people. I understand this. I don't believe this. I don't buy it.
But I know something. If they wouldn't have the few bucks in their pocket, so it's arrogance. Rabbi, I don't understand. What do you mean you don't understand? Who are you to understand? Do you believe it's God's word? Yes. So if you're accepting it's Hashem's word, it begins and ends. You won't question, did God ever say it? That's a different story. But if you accept God did say it, what do you mean I don't understand? You try to understand. You can't understand, so you're not even. But if God said it, evidently you're bound to it. It's definitely truth. And it's correct. So what's the answer? It's arrogance. That's what it is. Not ashamed of your accomplishment, your spiritual accomplishment.
Because we just learned